Welcome to the Sleepy Atom, your peaceful place for drifting into the mysteries of science, one quiet question at a time. Tonight we'll curl up with a thought so gentle it almost feels like a dream. What would happen if Earth stopped spinning? The world feels stable under our feet, but it's not still. Right now, beneath your cozy blanket, our planet is spinning over 1,600 kilometers per hour at the equator. It's constant, it's quiet, and it's something we never notice until we imagine it gone. So tonight we'll slow everything down, piece by piece, gently, from the skies to the oceans, to the very heartbeat of the Earth. We'll explore what would happen if one day the spin just stopped. No warning, no countdown, just stillness. As your eyes grow heavier and the world outside your window fades, let's take this journey together into a version of Earth where movement halts and silence begins to speak. Now close your eyes if you'd like. We're already beginning. The quiet question that no one asks. Most people go their entire lives without asking this one. What if Earth just stopped spinning? It's a quiet question, the kind that doesn't shout, doesn't demand answers. It lingers. Our home, so vast, so old, keeps spinning as it has for billions of years. So dependable that we forget to wonder, what if it changed? Not exploded, not froze, not tilted. Just stopped. No more spinning, no more rhythm. That question alone is enough to pull the stars a little closer. And when we ask that question, it isn't science fiction that answers. It's physics, slowly unfolding. Earth's rotation is responsible for more than just the rising and setting sun. It defines time. It holds weather in its arms. It keeps oceans hugging the shore. But if it paused, completely, it wouldn't just be a change in view. It would rewrite everything we think is stable. The ground, the air, even our sense of up and down. You might picture silence, peace. But stillness in a system built for motion creates tension, like a song frozen on one note. The balance shifts. The Earth, no longer twirling in its ballet, becomes something else entirely. And all life on it would feel the change, instantly. Even gravity would seem to whisper differently. You wouldn't fly off into space, thankfully, but everything would weigh just a little bit more. At the equator, Earth's rotation gently reduces gravity by a tiny fraction. Remove the spin, and that soft lift disappears. Your body would feel it, subtly, like someone quietly added a heavy blanket on top of you while you slept. But it wouldn't end there. The change wouldn't just happen above or below, it would ripple outward in every system that depends on motion. The air, the water, the seasons, all of it suddenly forgetting the dance it's practiced for eons. All because we asked one soft, almost forgotten question. What if the Earth stopped spinning? A gentle push and the Earth slows down. Imagine it begins not with a crash but with a sigh. Something unseen touches Earth's shoulder and starts to slow it. No alarms, no jolts, just a gradual loss of rhythm, like a clock winding down. The first to notice would be the satellites, those silent observers above us, drifting slightly off path. A pause begins in the heavens before it's felt on the skin. Below, the Earth's crust and its liquid core won't slow down in sync. Friction builds between the layers like silent tension in a long-held breath. The outer shell drags against the molten inner world, which still spins for a while longer. That tension builds heat, quietly, deep underground. The planet's bones start murmuring. The oceans, heavy and restless, feel it next. Right now, centrifugal force keeps the equator puffed slightly outward. But as Earth slows, the oceans begin to flow, slowly but unstoppably, toward the poles. Sea levels fall at the equator and rise at the edges of the world. Coastal cities stretch like a waking cat, unaware their foundations are shifting. And still, there's no sound, just a new kind of silence spreading across the globe. Not the absence of noise, but the absence of motion, as though Earth is holding its breath, waiting for someone to notice the change. Humans, built for rhythm, would feel it too. The sun lingers longer in one part of the sky. The days begin to stretch unnaturally, and while the change might begin gently, it would not stay that way. What starts with a whisper grows louder with every degree Earth loses from its spin. We are watching a giant slow to stillness, and the world holds its breath. The first stillness in the wind, that invisible traveller we take for granted, is deeply tied to Earth's spin. Right now, the rotation helps create something called the Coriolis effect, a silent twist in the path of the wind. It shapes hurricanes, guides jet streams, and gives the breeze its gentle push. But as the Earth begins to still, the wind begins to forget where it was going. At first, everything feels calm, too calm. The air stops twisting. Storms lose their familiar curves. The great rivers of wind in the upper atmosphere, the jet streams, slow down. Without the Coriolis effect, weather systems start wandering in strange directions. Some get stuck, others drift into places they've never touched before. On the ground, the absence of wind might feel peaceful. Trees no longer sway, flags hang limp. But this calm is deceptive. The air isn't settled, it's confused. And in places that depend on the wind to clear pollution or bring rain, the silence becomes suffocating. Cities might choke on their own breath. Meanwhile, old storm systems, no longer nudged forward, camp out over regions for days or weeks. What would have passed through in hours now lingers. Rains flood what was dry. Droughts lock down places once green. Weather doesn't flow anymore. It waits, still as a held breath. And as the Earth continues to lose its spin, even the concept of wind direction becomes a story from the past. The great invisible hands that shaped our skies for millennia are no longer moving. The stillness isn't just in the air, it's in the memory of motion itself. Oceans begin to drift. Differently. Earth's oceans, wide and deep, aren't still lakes, they're dancers in motion. Currents like the Gulf Stream flow across the planet, helping regulate temperature and life. These movements aren't random. They're sculpted by Earth's spin, by its rotation. And as that slows, the oceans begin to drift into unfamiliar patterns. The equatorial bulge begins to collapse. Without centrifugal force, water that once clung to the planet's middle starts a slow migration toward the poles. Coastlines change. Shorelines recede in some places and flood in others. Cities built by the sea wake up to find the sea has moved. The great conveyor belts of the deep sea, driven by differences in temperature and salt, begin to stumble. These currents help transport heat across the globe, cooling some regions, warming others. But without Earth's spin keeping things churning, the oceans grow quiet, stratified. Some areas grow colder than ever. Others become unbearably warm. Marine life, sensitive to the faintest change, feels the shift before we do. Fish migrate strangely. Coral reefs bleach without warning. Entire ecosystems blink out like candles in still water. The silence beneath the surface speaks louder than waves ever could. And above it all, the moon watches, pulling at oceans that no longer spin beneath them. The tides still rise and fall, but their rhythm is off. Something ancient in the sea has been disturbed, and Earth's blue heart no longer beats in time with its spin. The sky forgets how to move. For as long as we've existed, the sky has danced overhead. Sunrise in the east, sunset in the west, a reliable loop that shaped all life. But with the Earth now slowing, that familiar motion begins to fade. The sky doesn't know how to move without the Earth beneath it turning. The sun lingers in one part of the sky. Hours stretch, then days. Eventually, for many places, the sun just stops. One side of the planet becomes bathed in eternal daylight, while the other sinks into endless night. No sunrise, no sunset, just fixed light, or a long cold dark. Stars, once sliding gently across the heavens, now hover like painted dots. Time loses its markers. Calendars feel wrong. Sleep cycles unravel. Our biology, linked so intimately with day and night, starts to feel unanchored. Melatonin, cortisol, hunger, they all forget when to arrive. On the daylight side, plants are thrown into overdrive, photosynthesizing without rest. On the night side, they struggle to survive, denied light. This unevenness begins to carve new ecosystems, split not by latitude or weather, but by light itself. One side scorched, the other shivering. And through it all, the sky stays eerily still. No arc, no motion, just a silent canopy above a world that forgot how to turn. Gravity starts acting a little strange. Gravity, that quiet force we never think about, isn't just about mass, it's about motion too. Earth's spin helps shape the way gravity feels, especially near the equator. Right now you weigh a tiny bit less there than you would at the poles. That difference isn't much, but it's enough to matter. And if Earth stops spinning, that soft illusion is broken. People near the equator would suddenly feel slightly heavier, not because gravity grew stronger, but because the subtle outward push of centrifugal force disappears. It's like someone quietly pressed down on your shoulders while you weren't looking, but it wouldn't stop at body weight. The equatorial bulge, Earth's gentle waistline puffed out by rotation, would begin to shrink. Land would subtly redistribute itself, ever so slowly. Mountains might shift, lakes would reorient. The crust of the Earth, once stretched, would start to settle inward, rearranging everything above it. Skyscrapers built with exact tolerances might begin to tilt ever so slightly. Tectonic plates, sensitive to pressure shifts, might shift their balance too. The Earth wouldn't fall apart, but it would start to creak like an old house settling after a long storm. Gravity doesn't just pull downward, it anchors how we measure the world. With Earth at rest, the anchor shifts, and everything built on top of it begins to feel the change, without warning. Cities stretch like they're breathing. As Earth's shape adjusts without its spin, cities sitting near the equator feel it first. These places have lived their whole existence slightly puffed outward, like buildings built on a balloon. And now the balloon is deflating, slowly, invisibly, but undeniably. Bridges grow a little longer, roads crack in new places, buildings stretch and settle, like a person waking from a long nap. It happens subtly, inch by inch, but the effect is everywhere. Engineering marvels, made for motion, now try to adapt to stillness. Water systems shift, drainage changes direction. Places that never flooded before start to pool, while others dry up. Plumbing, power grids, even underground trains, all begin to whisper complaints as the ground underneath them reshapes. Nothing dramatic, just different, just odd enough to notice. People, waking up in high-rise apartments or coastal towns, might not realize it at first. But over days and weeks, small things become visible. Sunlight angles change, shadows fall oddly, doors stick, air feels heavier. Cities designed for a turning Earth now hold their breath in a still world. And yet amid this strange expansion, life goes on. Dogs still bark, children still play. But somewhere beneath the streets, the Earth continues to rearrange its bones. Mountains lean without falling. Mountains are often thought of as ancient and immovable, but they too are products of motion. Plate tectonics shape them, yes, but so did Earth's rotation. That spin gave the land its balance, a quiet tilt, a subtle outward push. Take that away, and the tallest places begin to lean ever so slightly. You wouldn't see Everest tip like a tower, but sensors, the kind buried in rock and snow, would notice. Tensions would build along fault lines already stretched. Rock layers might slip. Glaciers clinging to peaks would respond first, melting differently, sliding in ways no one predicted. Avalanches become more frequent, not because of weather, but because the pressure shifted. Earth's crust, once held steady by a spinning planet, now adjusts in slow motion. The strain doesn't scream, it hums, a tectonic murmur that echoes through every canyon and valley. Rivers born from mountaintop ice find new paths. They twist and swerve, unsure of their old routines. Villages downstream might face unfamiliar floods, while once lush lands grow thirsty. Nature is adjusting, and it's doing so without asking. In stillness, even the most stable structures must yield, not by toppling, but by bowing quietly to a new, unfamiliar balance. The horizon turns into a mirror. Look out at the horizon. It has always promised movement, the sun rising, the stars shifting, the clouds travelling west to east. But in a world where Earth no longer spins, the horizon becomes still, like a mirror that reflects a single moment forever. On the daylight side of the planet, the sun stops moving through the sky. Instead, it just hovers. Light becomes directional and permanent. Shadows stretch endlessly in one direction. Landscapes begin to bleach under constant exposure, like paper left on a sunny windowsill for years. On the night side, the mirror flips. Darkness stays. Cold deepens. The stars don't arc. They stand like frozen pinholes above a sleeping world. Entire towns live under perpetual starlight, their clocks ticking, but their days never arriving. Artificial lighting becomes the sun, and dreams become longer. For people living near the line between day and night, called the Terminator, the view becomes surreal. Half of their sky is daylight, the other dusk. And as Earth stops spinning, this strange twilight zone becomes the only place that still resembles the old rhythm. In this world, the horizon doesn't change, it just waits. A frozen frame from a movie that never plays. Beautiful, haunting, and deeply unfamiliar. Morning stays forever in one place. There is something special about morning, the cool air, the golden light, the gentle promise of movement. But if Earth stopped spinning, morning would pick one place and never leave it. That place would be trapped in a permanent dawn, the sun locked just above the horizon. At first it might feel magical, that soft glow, that long gentle warmth. But time would lose its shape there. People would wake and never be sure if it was time to sleep again. Plants would stay in bloom longer, animals might behave oddly, and circadian rhythms would blur. The sky would be painted in eternal gradients, orange, lavender, soft golds. Shadows would stretch sideways forever. Photographers would flock there at first, but soon the novelty would wear thin. Human minds, built on change, would grow restless under a light that never evolves. That strip of Earth, this dawn-hugged belt, would become one of the most habitable regions on the planet. Not too hot, not too cold. A twilight Goldilocks zone. And yet its beauty would come with consequences. Ecosystems not meant for such still light would either flourish or fade. The place where morning never ends might seem peaceful at first glance, but nothing in nature is meant to pause forever. Nights grow without end. On the far side of the planet, night deepens without promise of morning. There is no sunrise, no warmth tiptoeing back across the hills. Just shadow, stretching hour after hour into a new kind of forever. Entire cities fall into a sleep that doesn't end, not because they're tired, but because time itself no longer calls them awake. Temperatures begin to drop slowly but relentlessly. Streets that once bustled with evening energy fall silent. Windows frost. Trees freeze in place. The familiar hum of life grows quieter as people bundle in layers and neighborhoods dim their lights to save power. Without sunlight to guide it, the human body forgets how to regulate. Melatonin surges endlessly. Depression sets in faster. Memories feel heavier. People sleep more, eat differently, even speak slower. Some adapt by building artificial suns. Others migrate toward the twilight zones, the last places where day and night still remember each other. Nature responds in its own ways. Nocturnal animals thrive. Daytime creatures vanish. Crops refuse to grow. Food chains break. Wolves return to places they hadn't roamed in centuries, led by a sky that never changes. Night pulls everything inward. And all the while, above these silent lands, stars shine bright and unmoving, like they're watching but never blinking. The sun freezes in the sky, and where on earth the sun has stopped moving, it didn't vanish, it just froze in place, hovering mid-sky like a distant eye, neither rising nor setting. For the people beneath it, this isn't just endless daylight, it's exposure, constant light, constant heat, constant clarity. Shadows stretch short and sharp, never shifting. Buildings reflect the same golden hue for days, then weeks. Temperatures rise steadily, cooking the land beneath. Grass crisps, paint fades, roads buckle under unrelenting pressure. It's not the intensity, it's the permanence that begins to wear things down. The human mind, wired to respond to change, struggles in this locked world. There is no rhythm, no beginning, no end, just the same moment, on repeat. Children grow up without learning what a sunset looks like. Photographs all glow with the same light. Without the cooling effect of nighttime, even simple tasks become exhausting. People work underground. Cities install artificial shade towers. Crops are genetically altered to survive the overexposure. Entire societies learn to live in what feels like a paused afternoon. And high above it all, the sun remains still. Not angry, not kind, just constant, as if reminding us that we once spun around it, and now we do not. Time gets trapped in a shadow. On a planet that no longer spins, the idea of time begins to fray. It's not that clocks stop ticking, they keep going, but they feel detached, like a song playing in a room no one stands in. Without sunrise or sunset, without shifting light, time feels unmoored. People begin to live by numbers. 8 a.m. means nothing if the sky hasn't changed in days. Work shifts follow artificial rhythms. Some wear visors that dim or brighten by schedule just to keep their minds anchored to something. The natural world, once our clock, no longer keeps time. In places caught between night and day, the Terminator line, shadows never move. A house there will always have half its lawn in light, the other in darkness. People in these regions begin to redefine morning and evening by how far they walk across their own street. Calendars stretch thin. Holidays tied to equinoxes or solstices become confusing myths. Spiritual rituals once aligned to the sun now drift into guesswork. Birthdays arrive under identical skies. Seasons blur until they're no longer remembered, just stored in books and holograms. And through it all, the earth continues to hold still. Time, once anchored to movement, now floats untethered, like dust in a room with no windows. Clocks keep ticking, but something feels off. You still hear them, wall clocks, wristwatches, the digital chime of your phone, but the tick-tock rhythm they keep feels wrong. It's like watching a movie where the soundtrack doesn't match the scene. The world around you doesn't move the way the seconds say it should. When Earth spun, clocks had meaning. Noon meant sun overhead. Midnight meant stars alone in the sky. But now, time continues without a partner. The sun doesn't move. The stars don't dance. The seconds feel hollow, like counting breaths in a room where no one breathes. Psychologists begin to notice strange symptoms. Anxiety increases, not from speed but from stillness. Time moves, but people feel trapped in the same moment. Some try to live by lunar cycles, others by electric pulses. A few abandon time altogether, measuring their lives by meals, footsteps, or music. Society adapts, but uneasily. Time zones collapse. Every city creates its own rhythm. A town stuck in darkness holds noon celebrations under lamplight. Another, in endless daylight, starts sleeping during what used to be afternoon. No one agrees on what day it is anymore. And while seconds and minutes tick on, the earth remains still, not ignoring time, but having moved beyond the need for it. Our sleep cycle slips out of sync. It starts slowly. You stay up a little longer than usual. Sleep feels strange. You wake unsure if it's morning or night, but as Earth stops spinning, this subtle confusion grows into a global drift. Circadian rhythms, once synchronized with sunrise and sunset, begin to break. Without cues from the sky, the body forgets its patterns. Melatonin surges at the wrong times. People feel sleepy at noon and wired at midnight. In eternal night zones, depression spreads. In never-ending day, insomnia becomes epidemic. Humanity begins to run on fractured time. Doctors develop artificial sleep aids, pulses of light to simulate sunrise, soundscapes to mimic dusk. Some people adopt polyphasic sleep, napping in fragments instead of long rests. Others move to the twilight line, where there's at least a trace of natural change. Dreams become a subject of global study. Without the sun to anchor consciousness, dreams grow more vivid, more symbolic. Some report dream cycles tied to magnetic fields or ocean tides. Sleep becomes sacred, personal, no longer shared across culture, but navigated like a private sea. And in this world of fractured nights and endless days, the act of sleeping becomes not just necessary, but revolutionary, a way to keep rhythm alive in a planet that has none. Plants begin to whisper. Warnings plants, so quiet and steady, are among the first to feel that something is deeply wrong. They don't need words. They speak through growth, through colour, through rhythm. And when the earth stops spinning, their rhythm is the first to slip away. Morning never arrives for some, and for others, the sun never sets. Leaves once tuned to follow the sun now stretch helplessly toward a light that never moves. On the night side of Earth, leaves droop in darkness, confused by the cold. Photosynthesis halts. Nutrients stagnate. The plants there become sleepy, then still. In the light-locked zones, there's a different kind of suffering. The constant solar glare drives plants into overdrive, growing too fast, then burning out. Soil bakes. Water evaporates before it can be absorbed. Even hardy crops like corn and wheat begin to fail. Farmers wake to fields that grew overnight, only to wither by dusk that never came. Botanists notice strange mutations, leaves twisting into new shapes, flowers blooming at odd hours. Some plants try to adapt, reshaping their sleep cycles in ways we've never seen before. Others remain frozen in their last phase, like a breath they forgot to release. It's subtle, it's slow, but the message is clear. Life built on rotation cannot survive stillness without a cost. Trees lean toward eternal sunlight. In places where the sun never moves from the sky, trees begin to change. These old giants, used to following the sun across the day, now stretch endlessly in one direction, toward the light, toward survival. They lean like worshippers frozen mid-prayer. reaching across neighborhoods, gardens, entire hillsides. At first, the lean is slight, just a few degrees, but over months, branches grow longer on one side, trunks curve, roots dig harder into the earth to compensate. Forests, once symmetrical, start to look like they're crawling eastward, away from the shadow that never returns. On the dark side of the earth, trees behave differently. No light, no warmth. They conserve energy, pulling it inward. Leaves fall earlier. Growth halts. Some species slip into a kind of hibernation, while others stand like skeletal frames, waiting for a spring that never arrives. Ecologists track these changes like archaeologists watching a civilization crumble in slow motion. New species emerge, twisted, asymmetrical, shadow-dwelling. Old ones vanish without fanfare. The shape of life bends in a new direction. Even in stillness, nature finds a way to move. But the movement now is not about time. It's about survival under a sun that forgot how to leave. One side of Earth starts to burn. Where the sun never sets, the land begins to smoulder, not with fire, but with relentless heat. Temperatures rise not in sharp spikes, but in long, slow waves. Asphalt softens, rivers dry. Even the air seems to shimmer, thick with a heat that never sleeps. Buildings expand and crack under constant exposure. Glass warps, metal sizzles to the touch. People avoid the outdoors not because of danger, but because the sun no longer gives space to rest. Shade becomes sacred. Water becomes ritual. Cities once vibrant now live underground or under reflective domes. Ecosystems collapse in stages. Insects swarm, confused by light that never dims. Birds leave, but have nowhere to go. Even bacteria in the soil begin behaving strangely, multiplying faster than expected. The balance tips from life to survival, then from survival to withdrawal. Governments respond with migration plans, move people slowly, section by section, toward the twilight belt. There, temperatures are still manageable. There, the heat hasn't learned how to anchor itself permanently yet. But the hot zones, once equators of abundance, become dead belts. Not from war or disaster, but from stillness. The burn doesn't come in flames. It comes in hours that never end, and the sun, still locked in place, watches with indifferent gold. The other becomes a frozen dream. Across the world from the scorched zones lies a land where the sun never comes back. The darkness doesn't fall with a crash, it simply stays. And in this quiet, frost creeps forward, street by street, forest by forest, until even the air feels made of glass. Temperatures fall slowly, but with no end. Ice forms on windows that never thaw. Rivers turn to crystal ribbons. Snow piles up in silence. Without sunlight, even geothermal warmth struggles to hold back the chill. Cities dim their lights to conserve energy. Electric grids hum like lullabies trying to keep the night at bay. In this frozen half of the world, daily life becomes dreamlike. People lose track of time. Nights stretch too long. Thoughts feel heavier. Movement slows. Entire communities operate on borrowed light and heat, sharing both like they're sacred heirlooms passed down through generations. Nature shifts too. Animals hibernate for months instead of weeks. Permafrost expands. Polar bears venture farther inland. Bioluminescent fungi spread through dark forests like living lanterns. Life does not disappear. It adapts in beautiful, eerie ways. But still, the silence deepens. A cold so soft it doesn't bite. It embraces. The kind of cold you don't feel at first, until it becomes your entire world. The air begins to move like a tide. Even though Earth has stopped spinning, the air doesn't forget how to move. It shifts differently now, not in circles but in waves. Slow, sweeping tides of atmosphere drifting from hot to cold, from day to night, as if the wind were trying to balance what the planet no longer can. Warm air from the sunlit side rises endlessly, while cold air from the dark side sinks and creeps back underneath. It's a planetary convection, one giant breath in, one giant breath out. But these aren't gentle breezes. They're long, dragging winds that change weather in new and unpredictable ways. In some regions, these slow winds bring clouds that never leave. In others, they pull dry air across landscapes, turning once fertile plains into deserts. Rain begins to fall in loops, repeating patterns that don't break for months. There are no seasons now, only shifts in pressure. Storms become travellers without direction. Some form over hot zones and never move. Others ride the air tides to frozen lands, where snow falls in places that haven't seen it in centuries. Meteorologists stop naming storms. They name zones of breath, like parts of a sleeping giant's chest. And all across the world the air keeps flowing, not because the planet moves, but because balance, once lost, still tries to return. Jet streams break their pattern. High above, the jet streams, those fast-moving rivers of air that circle the planet, begin to lose their way. Normally, Earth's spin carves their path, bending them eastward across continents. But without rotation, these invisible highways slow, wander, then fade into chaos. The northern jet stream, which once brought cool air across Europe and North America, now drifts sluggishly. It stops steering storms. It stops separating warm and cold. Weather begins to stall. Fronts that once moved like ocean waves now hang heavy in the sky. Regions that relied on predictable flows become unpredictable deserts or floodplains. Crops fail, not from drought or frost alone, but because the sky forgot how to deliver its patterns. Farmers look up and see clouds that never leave, or skies that never change. A new kind of stillness settles in the atmosphere. It isn't calm, it's confused. Planes flying long distance must chart slower, lower altitude routes to avoid turbulence pockets that don't behave anymore. The age of reliable aviation quietly fades. And while the ground remains still, the upper winds whisper their own story. A story of lost guidance, wandering pressure, and the sky trying to remember the shape of movement. Weather doesn't remember the forecast. With jet streams fading and Earth's rotation paused, the very idea of a forecast becomes quaint. Weather stops obeying. It no longer moves in. It stays. It lingers. It builds in one place until it becomes something else entirely. A light drizzle that once passed in an hour might now last a week. Sunlight that once broke through clouds by afternoon might never return. Entire countries wake up under a ceiling of grey and don't see blue for months. It's not a storm, it's an occupation. Forecast models, once powered by data and rhythm, collapse under the weight of stillness. Supercomputers churn numbers, but the patterns don't hold. Meteorologists stop predicting and start describing. The weather isn't coming, it's already here, and it's staying. In some areas, this creates quiet tragedy. Crops drown, roads disappear, wildlife migrates without guidance. But in others, it's stranger. Constant calm, a windless summer, a rain that starts every night at exactly the same time, patterns that feel less like weather, more like habits of a planet stuck mid-thought. People begin to tune their lives not to forecasts, but to instinct, to smell, to cloud shapes, to the way birds fly at dusk, because when the earth stops spinning, even the wind forgets what's next. Storms settle in one spot for too long. Without rotation to guide them, storms no longer spin off and travel. They build, they hover, they brood. What would have been a passing thunderstorm becomes a permanent feature of the local skyline. Thunder grumbling for weeks, rain falling like a drumbeat that won't stop. In warm zones, tropical storms develop into slow-moving giants. Instead of crossing oceans, they sit just offshore, feeding endlessly from the warm seas beneath. Cities nearby are pelted with rain for so long that buildings begin to mold and crumble from the inside. Hurricanes, those once spinning beasts, don't disappear. They become wall-like systems of wind and water that just stand. No eye, no movement, just pressure, pushing down with the weight of a mountain. Emergency response no longer talks in days. They prepare for months. Floodplains become inland seas. Rivers reverse their flow. The sky above these places doesn't clear. It blinks maybe for a few hours, then darkens again. Some towns are evacuated not because they're unsafe, but because they've simply become unlivable. Too wet, too loud, too stuck. And as these storms become landmarks, people learn to live in their shadows. Children grow up under thunder. Dogs don't react to lightning anymore, and the earth keeps holding its breath beneath them. Rain becomes a stranger in some places. While some regions drown beneath endless cloud, others look up at skies that never weep again. The rain, once generous, becomes a stranger. Not gone, just absent, like a friend who forgot your name. Deserts stretch slowly across once green lands, not with wind, but with stillness. The air grows dusty, soil hardens. Trees that once bloomed in spring now crack in silence. Farmers turn on irrigation systems for weeks, only to find the reservoirs dry. Lakes shrink, then vanish. Animals walk longer and longer paths, just to find a trickle. In the absence of weather movement, clouds don't form as easily. The usual collisions, warm front meets cold, no longer occur. Instead, the sky becomes blank, washed out. The kind of blue that feels empty, not peaceful, just forgotten. Cultures begin to change in response. People worship shade. Homes are painted white to reflect the unmoving sun. Markets close midday, not for heat but for drought. Some pray for wind, not for crops, but just for the feeling of air that moves. And even when the rain finally returns, it does so awkwardly, in bursts, in the wrong seasons, in places where no one lives anymore, as if it too had to relearn how to be a part of Earth's breath. New deserts start to form, unexpectedly. Deserts are no longer confined to lines on a map. They begin to form in places no one expected. Northern hills, coastal plains, forests that once glistened with dew. It doesn't take fire or sandstorms, just time, and the absence of change. Without Earth's rotation, weather stalls. Moisture no longer travels freely. One side of the planet bakes under the same sun each hour, and slowly the land beneath gives in. Grasses vanish, insects disappear. Soil begins to crack and crust like ancient pottery. These new deserts are strange, silent. They don't announce themselves. They appear like slow bruises on the surface of the world. Some are red, others white with dust. Some glow silver at night under a moon that doesn't move. Life, still curious, tries to grow there, but not for long. Communities nearby begin to shift. They build shaded roads. They bury water lines deep underground. Children are raised knowing how to plant in pots, not fields. Climate zones, once static, become stories passed down, not something you feel with your skin anymore. And somewhere, beneath the dryness, seeds wait. Not all deserts are forever, but as the earth stands still, more and more places join this silent landscape, created not by heat, but by the loss of movement. Glaciers creep across abandoned cities. As the cold side of the earth deepens into darkness, glaciers begin to stretch their long, slow fingers across the land. Not crashing down, but creeping. Steady, quiet, like white roots reclaiming what was once paved. Highways disappear beneath thick sheets. Streetlights still standing, glow softly through the ice. The glaciers don't roar, they murmur. Each inch they move is a sigh from a planet exhaling its forgotten warmth. Once bustling cities now look like glassy tombs, preserved in slow motion. Windows are frosted over, parking lots buried beneath layers of ancient cold. Even places that once knew snow aren't ready for this. Buildings groan under the weight, roofs collapse like paper under water. Time seems to fold, modern architecture swallowed by something prehistoric, something that once shaped the entire world and now returns inch by inch. Scientists walk across these frozen places in silence, measuring the speed, reading the thickness. But deep inside, even they feel like guests in a museum where the exhibits are still growing. It's humbling, beautiful, frightening, all at once. And beneath the glacier's feet, life pauses. Not lost, not gone, just waiting for the sun to find its courage again. Birds Forget Which Way Is South migration was once a perfect story. The seasonal song of instinct and memory passed through feathers and sky. But when Earth stops spinning, those stories begin to unravel. Birds lift into the air as they always have. But the cues are wrong. The winds don't whisper the way they used to. Magnetic fields, altered by the loss of spin, give conflicting signals. The sun, fixed in place, offers no help. Day and night blur. And so the flocks fly, not south, not north, but in spirals, in confused loops over lands that no longer feel like home. Some never leave. They nest in places they've never stopped in before. Entire species begin to root themselves in unfamiliar climates, building nests in frozen towns or sunlit deserts. Ornithologists start seeing birds they've only read about, flying over cities where they've never been recorded before. Songs change too. The melodies evolve, not with the seasons, but with confusion. New calls echo through canyons and coastlines. Mating patterns shift. Survival adapts. And slowly, quietly, the sky rewrites its own map. Humans look up, and the sky feels different. Not emptier, but more uncertain, like a page turning without a table of contents. The birds, once our seasonal guides, are now wanderers like the rest of us. Whales sing in lost directions. Deep beneath the oceans, whales begin to sing, and something in their songs changes. These gentle giants, who once followed ancient sea paths with perfect memory, now seem adrift. The waters still move, but without the Earth's rotation to guide ocean currents, the pathways blur. Sound travels differently too. Without spinning tides stirring layers of salt and heat, the ocean becomes more stratified. Whales call out, but their songs bounce oddly, delayed, warped. What once felt like a conversation across miles now feels like a whisper in a fog. Some whales dive deeper, seeking the colder currents they remember. Others drift far from traditional migration zones, appearing in bays they haven't entered in generations. Marine biologists track them like travelers who forgot their map but kept singing anyway. Pods stay closer together now, not for food, but for certainty. And their songs, longer, lower, more searching, as if they're not just communicating, but grieving. The ocean hasn't stopped, but it feels unfamiliar. The shape of home has shifted beneath the waves, and in the stillness above, the surface glistens with silence. Beneath, the whales continue to sing, because even in confusion, they remember how to echo across the depths. Magnetic fields begin to waver. Deep within the Earth, the molten iron core spins independently of the crust. It's this movement that generates our magnetic field, a protective bubble shielding us from solar radiation. But when the Earth above stops spinning, that balance trembles. The field doesn't vanish, but it wavers. Compasses begin to drift slightly off true north, then a little more. Airplanes reroute their calibration. Birds, turtles, even bacteria with magnetite-based navigation, feel the change before humans do. The world doesn't flip upside down, but its invisible rules become less reliable. Scientists detect fluctuations, unexpected surges and dips in strength. The magnetic poles start to wander faster. Northern lights become more frequent and more chaotic. Colours twist in patterns we've never seen, flickering like brushstrokes across a canvas of stars. At first it feels magical, a planet painting its sky in new ways. But beneath the wonder is uncertainty. Electronics grow more sensitive. Satellites are forced into safer orbits. Some communication signals weaken during certain hours, as if the planet is shifting its mood. And far below, in the iron heart of the Earth, the spin continues. But for how long? Even the core can only keep going alone for so long before it must choose stillness too. The northern lights behave strangely. The auroras, those dancing lights near the poles, have always been tied to magnetism and solar winds. But now, as Earth's magnetic field begins to change, the auroras change too. No longer confined to the far north or south, they drift. They appear in places that have never seen them before. People in Tokyo, Cairo, and Mexico City begin spotting streaks of green and violet in the night sky. News channels scramble. Scientists explain. But it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels mesmerizing. The world ceiling glowing softly, like a quiet message from the sky. But something about them is different. The shapes twist slower. Some linger like curtains drawn across the stars. Others flicker rapidly, like pulses from a heart too unsure of its own rhythm. The sky, once in motion from Earth's spin, now hosts these shimmering guests that feel both ancient and new. Photographers race to capture them. Poets write about them. Children reach for them from rooftops. But physicists know what they really are, a visible reminder that Earth's protective shield is changing shape. The auroras are not just pretty, they are symptoms of deeper shifts. And yet they remain gentle, silent, painting the night sky as if to remind us that even in the strange new world, beauty still flickers without asking. Our compasses no longer agree. It starts as a minor inconvenience, one compass pointing slightly west, another a bit too far east. At first no one notices, but soon the difference becomes obvious. Two hikers standing side by side find their needles disagreeing entirely. The magnetic north has started wandering, and it doesn't seem to know where home is anymore. As Earth's magnetic field weakens and shifts without the support of rotation, the rules that guided explorers for centuries begin to dissolve. Magnetic anomalies grow more common, zones where north points south, or where the needle spins in slow confusion like it's dreaming. Pilots begin to double-check their coordinates with the stars again. Submarines rely more on sonar than magnetic headings. Surveyors start reporting field deviations they can't correct for. Entire industries that once trusted the quiet pull of magnetism now look up for guidance, not down. In school, students ask if they're still learning the real north. Teachers pause before answering. GPS helps, but even that system is tied in part to Earth's magnetic behavior. The silence inside a compass becomes a symbol, a whisper that even our most trusted constants can change. And somewhere deep in Earth's molten belly, the iron shifts a little slower. A reminder that without spin, even the invisible starts to drift. Satellites drift off course. High above, in the calm vacuum of space, Earth's satellites circle endlessly, or at least they used to. When the planet stops spinning, the balance that kept those orbits stable begins to slide out of alignment. The problem isn't immediate, but it's persistent. Like watching marbles roll slightly off-center, many satellites were launched with the assumption that Earth was rotating beneath them. Their paths, angles, and speeds were synchronized to a world in motion. Without that rotation, their orbits begin to shift. Subtle at first, but over weeks and months, they fall behind their tasks. Weather satellites stop hovering where storms used to form. Imaging satellites miss their targets. Communications satellites drift just far enough to cause flickers, pauses, or entire outages. Engineers scramble, adjusting thrusters and rerouting signal paths. Some are saved, others quietly blink out. Astronomers notice it first. Their measurements no longer match. Star trackers feel off. Telescopes that depended on satellite feedback begin to misalign. Even the space agencies, with their deep pockets and brilliant teams, admit that they'll have to rethink orbital strategy from scratch. And still, the Earth looks up, not rotating, not chasing its satellites, just sitting still, while the objects it sent into space forget why they were up there in the first place. GPS systems lose their rhythm. When you check your phone to find directions, you trust something quiet and invisible, the global positioning system. Dozens of satellites triangulate your position as Earth spins beneath them. But now, Earth doesn't spin, and GPS starts to forget where you are. The calculations were built on movement. Time-stamped signals, bouncing from space to ground, relied on Earth's rotation to predict where you'd be. Without it, those equations become slightly wrong, then more wrong, until entire systems start to wobble like a metronome with no tempo. At first, it's just traffic apps that get it wrong, saying you're on the wrong street or the next town over. But then emergency response units miss locations. Drones veer off course. Ships charting ocean routes begin to second-guess themselves. Precision turns to approximation. Engineers attempt to recalibrate the network. Ground stations send new instructions. But some satellites no longer align with any rhythm. They're out of sync, not just with each other, but with the idea of a rotating Earth they were designed to orbit around. And so, humans begin to rely again on older instincts. Paper maps, street signs, the position of the sun, if it's even visible. Because when the ground stops moving, you have to learn to trust your own sense of direction again. The moon's pull changes everything. Even though Earth has stopped spinning, the moon hasn't gone anywhere. It still orbits us, still pulls at the oceans, still shapes tides with its gentle gravitational hand. But now, without the spin to balance that pull, the effect deepens. Quietly, profoundly. Tides stop following their usual schedule. Instead of regular highs and lows, the water lingers, drawn toward the moon's constant tug, with no centrifugal force to even it out. Coastal cities begin to flood differently, slowly, but with persistence. Like the sea is reaching a little farther each day. The oceans bulge unevenly. Some shorelines retreat, others advance. Places once protected by rotation-driven tides now face quiet invasions of salt water. Wetlands drown. River mouths become unstable. The sea's heartbeat no longer echoes the Earth's pulse. It follows only the moon now. Fishermen notice first. The currents don't feel right. Tidal windows become harder to predict. Coral reefs begin to bleach in areas once thriving, and strange new ecosystems emerge where none had been before. It's not violent, it's not sudden, but it is relentless. And every night the moon continues its silent orbit, unchanged, watching over a planet that no longer turns beneath it, guiding the oceans like a lullaby written in a forgotten key. Tides stall and confuse. Coastal life tides, once rhythmic and reliable, begin to act oddly. In some places, the sea pulls in and never quite pulls back. In others, low tide stretches longer than anyone can remember. The creatures who lived by this rhythm, the crabs, the mussels, the seabirds, start to lose their cues. Shorelines become unpredictable. Beachfronts widen in strange patterns, only to vanish days later. Entire habitats collapse, not because of destruction, but because their clocks no longer work. Eggs are laid too early. Feeding times miss the mark. Nests go dry. Fish spawn in confusion. Tide pools, once tiny universes of life, stay exposed too long. Sunlight burns what used to thrive in delicate balance. In other areas, constant submersion drowns what needed just a little air. The in-between, the life of the intertidal zone, begins to fade. Fishermen tell new stories now. Tales of fish vanishing, of jellyfish blooms arriving early. They look up at the moon, and they don't blame it, but they wonder what it's pulling on now that Earth no longer dances beneath it. And still, the tides continue. But now they move not like breath, but like memory. Slow, stubborn echoes of emotion that once made sense. Coral reefs start dimming their glow. Coral reefs are Earth's underwater gardens, bright, pulsing, alive. But they rely on more than warm water. They rely on light that shifts, tides that breathe, and ocean currents that whisper nutrients across the sea. When the Earth stops spinning, those whispers fall silent. The sun no longer moves across the sky. For reefs trapped in constant day, the light becomes too much. The corals used to daily rhythms begin to bleach under the relentless exposure. Their colourful symbiosis with algae starts to fade. What once glowed in pinks, blues and greens now pales to ghost white. In the shadowed zones, it's the opposite. Without light, the algae cannot photosynthesize. The coral grows sleepy, sluggish, then silent. Some begin to collapse. Not all at once, just quietly, one tiny structure at a time, and the fish that danced between them begin to drift away. Scientists dive into the shallows and see changes they can't reverse. Creatures appear out of season. Others vanish completely. The reef feels less like a city and more like a forgotten ruin, slowly crumbling beneath a sun that forgot how to rise and set. And even in their dimming, the coral remains still, not dead, but no longer pulsing with the rhythm of a moving earth. Fish follow forgotten currents. Beneath the surface, fish swim with ancient memory, not thought but feeling. Tides, temperature, salinity, and sunlight all gently guide them across vast blue distances. But now, with Earth's spin paused and its patterns broken, those guiding forces begin to blur. Currents no longer behave. Some have slowed, others stalled completely. The great ocean conveyor belt that once carried warm water across the globe starts to fragment. Fish that relied on it for migration, spawning, and feeding now swim in loops, searching for signals that no longer arrive. Tropical fish appear in cooler zones. Deep-sea dwellers rise to the surface. Predators follow prey into strange territories. Coral reef species wander off in silence, unsure where the food has gone. Fishermen cast their nets and pull up strangers, species that should be thousands of kilometers away. Some fish follow phantom routes, guided only by instinct. Others simply stay still, waiting. Schools that once shimmered like clouds in motion now gather densely, like flocks unsure which way to fly. The ocean doesn't roar or crash, it holds its breath. And from above, satellites track these drifts like ink in water. Life is still moving, but it no longer remembers why it started in the first place. Undersea volcanoes murmur in silence. Beneath the weight of the oceans, under thousands of meters of pressure, the earth breathes fire. Not with rage, but with rhythm. Undersea volcanoes dot the seafloor like glowing freckles, their heat balanced by motion, pressure, and spin. But now that balance has shifted. Without rotation, tectonic tension distributes differently. The plates above these volcanic chambers no longer move in their predictable paths. Some grind slower, others lock in place. Heat has fewer escape valves, and slowly, softly, the volcanoes begin to murmur. The water above doesn't bubble violently, it warms, just a little, enough to awaken ancient vents, enough to stir methane hydrates long frozen into the crust. Some volcanoes awaken, others begin to pulse quietly, releasing minerals that hadn't seen the ocean in millennia. Whole ecosystems bloom suddenly around these changes. Blind shrimp, tube worms, glass sponges. Scientists observe species they didn't know existed, forming colonies around the new warmth. But with beauty comes uncertainty. These delicate biomes are sensitive to even minor shifts. The earth under the sea isn't angry, it's thoughtful. Its silence isn't stillness, it's recalibration. A deep glowing hum from a world trying to rebalance its internal heartbeat after its spin has stopped. Fault lines. Wake up from sleep. On the surface, Earth looks still, but deep below, its bones remember movement. Fault lines, those long invisible cracks between tectonic plates, have spent eons dancing to the planet's spin. Without that motion, they start to remember how to move differently. Tension builds in slow, unfamiliar ways. No more regular pulses. No centrifugal pressure to balance the inner churn. The plates begin to press into one another, slowly, unevenly, and in places that haven't moved in centuries, the ground begins to sigh. Some earthquakes strike in expected zones, but others, small towns far from any known fault, feel tremors they've never known. Buildings shift, roads ripple, glass quivers. It's not violent at first, it's haunting, like a slow drumbeat inside stone. Geologists race to map the new behavior, but without rotation the models crumble. Old zones become quiet, new ones awaken, the maps don't match anymore. Earth's spine is shifting posture without telling anyone why, and yet, beneath the quakes, there's something tender. The planet isn't falling apart, it's adjusting, redistributing weight, seeking a new form of balance in a body built to spin. A body now learning how to stand still. Earthquakes no longer wait their turn. Before, earthquakes had rhythm. One shift triggered another. Faults moved like a conversation. One side pushes, the other replies. But with the earth at rest, the timing breaks. The pauses between tremors lengthen, then shorten, then vanish entirely. Quakes arrive in strange clusters. One region stills for years, then erupts with weeks of motion. Another, long silent, begins to rattle once every few days. The earth isn't louder, it's less predictable. It doesn't echo anymore, it stutters, it surges, then it sleeps again. Some fault zones begin to creep instead of crack. Slow earthquakes, once rare, become common. Buildings lean without falling. Pavement curves gently over weeks. People wake up feeling dizzy, only to find the ground under them has moved without making a sound. Seismologists struggle to warn anyone in time. Their instruments flash data with no rhythm. The ground isn't restless, it's rewriting its script. It's no longer part of a spinning, pulsing whole. It's a still body with moving scars. And above, on the surface, the air remains calm. The trees sway gently, but deep beneath, Earth's inner layers whisper old songs in a new language, one built for a world without rotation. Volcanoes erupt in unfamiliar places. Volcanoes are creatures of pattern. They bloom where plates collide, where pressure builds, where magma finds its breath. But with the Earth no longer spinning, the maps we once used to predict eruptions begin to feel outdated, like recipes missing half the ingredients. Dormant volcanoes in quiet valleys begin to stir, not violently, but with soft hisses. Hills long thought extinct show new heat signatures. Places where no lava has flowed for millennia now glow faintly beneath the soil. The pressure has found new paths to release itself. In regions built around old assumptions, entire communities are caught off guard. Ash drifts across cities that had never tasted it before. Geysers burst in forests. Boiling springs emerge in suburban parks. The ground doesn't roar, it exhales in long, deep pulses. And while scientists scramble to monitor these unexpected awakenings, something deeper is at work. The lack of spin has changed internal distribution. The molten veins beneath the crust stretch and twist differently now. New weaknesses form. New expressions of the planet's breath appear. Not all eruptions are catastrophic. Some are slow. Some only whisper. But one thing is clear. Without the gentle rotation above, Earth's fire chooses new places to speak. Continental plates hold their breath. The continents float on massive slabs of rock called tectonic plates, drifting slowly like ships on a molten sea. When Earth spun, these plates moved with the planet's rhythm, pushed, pulled, nudged over millions of years. But now the spin has stopped, and the plates begin to pause. It's not a full stop, it's hesitation, like dancers holding a pose a second too long. The collisions that formed mountains slow. The spreading of ocean floors eases. Subduction zones stall like escalators with no electricity. The plates hold their breath, and the crust above waits. Some areas grow strangely quiet. Places once full of tremors feel still, like a room after music ends. But in that quiet, tension builds. The pause doesn't mean peace, it means delay. A coiling spring with no outlet yet, and the crust, patient as ever, prepares to shift again. Geologists notice minor bulges, land rising ever so slightly, old rift valleys stretching wider, a mountain gaining 1/2 meter in silence. These aren't sudden, they're graceful, but unmistakable. The land is still dancing, it's just changing the tempo. Even in rest, the earth has motion. The plates are not lost, just suspended, like breath before a word, like footsteps before a turn, waiting to decide what kind of world this new stillness will create. The core of the earth hears the silence. Deep beneath the mantle, Earth's core spins on its own axis, faster than the crust above. It's the planet's engine, its molten heart. And while the crust has stopped turning, the core hasn't. Not yet. But now, it begins to listen to the silence above. For centuries, the core spun faster than the surface, generating Earth's magnetic field and storing energy like a coiled spring. But with the crust no longer moving, the feedback loop has changed. The outer layers no longer pull or tug. The tension between surface and center starts to unravel. Slowly, subtly, the core begins to lose its urgency, like a pendulum winding down. It still moves, but the rhythm shifts. The molten iron begins swirling in new patterns. Heat redistributes. The magnetic field it creates grows patchier, less symmetrical. The very heartbeat of the planet wavers. Scientists detect changes in seismic wave speeds. Some sound faster, others slower. It's like the inner Earth is mumbling in a different language, still active, still powerful, but no longer speaking in sync with the layers above. And in that immense pressure and darkness, something ancient stirs. The core doesn't mourn the surface's stillness. It adapts to it, relearning its own motion in a world that forgot how to turn. Earth's heartbeat begins to slow. The Earth has a rhythm, not one you can hear with ears, but one that pulses through everything. It's called the Schumann resonance, a faint electromagnetic frequency that hums between the ground and the sky. And when the planet stops spinning, that resonance begins to change. Scientists call it Earth's heartbeat, a soft planetary thrum that vibrates around 7.83 Hz. Birds navigate by it. Humans even sleep better when it's stable. But now, it's drifting, not vanishing, just slowing, like a song played at half speed. The pauses between pulses grow longer. Some people feel it before they measure it. Sleep becomes heavier. Dreams grow longer, more vivid. Meditation feels deeper. Electrical devices behave oddly, sometimes flickering, sometimes buzzing with faint static. It's subtle, but universal. In laboratories, researchers recheck their instruments. The measurements are clear. The rhythm is changing. The Earth isn't just still on the outside, it's resonating differently inside. It's humming a new tune, slower, lower, like it's breathing through thicker air. And though the skies above seem untouched, this gentle shift in frequency begins to ripple through plants, animals, even moods. The planet's lullaby is quieter now, but still there, still singing, just in a key we're only beginning to recognize. Magnetosphere shrinks, like a fading shield. Earth's magnetosphere is its invisible armor, a vast bubble of charged particles that deflects solar wind, protects us from radiation, and gives us auroras. It's powered by the dance of molten iron in the core and the spin of the planet. But as the crust no longer turns, the shield begins to shrink. Not all at once. It fades in fringes. The edges become thinner. More solar particles slip through. Satellites start reporting more interference. The northern lights become brighter, but also more chaotic. And in the silence of space, Earth's protection grows fragile. Astronauts in orbit notice it first. Communication blackouts, strange static in the panels, flashes of light behind their eyes caused by radiation spikes. The space station powers down non-essential systems to ride through the storms. Ground control watches with quiet concern. On Earth, the changes arrive more slowly. Airline flights are rerouted around magnetic anomalies. High-latitude regions report more cases of electrical malfunctions. Solar flares that once danced harmlessly against our shield now leave fingerprints across radio towers and power grids. And though most people never feel it, the magnetosphere's gentle contraction is a whisper, an exhale from a planet that no longer spins, still doing its best to protect everything that lives under its silent sky.